Welcome to Small Ball. The lighting, oh no, it just kind of changed. I think it was my computer. Anyway, the lighting looked a little weird for a sec, but now it looks just peachy. Welcome to Small Ball. It is a little grainy, at least from my point of view here. So I apologize for that. But we're live on Small Ball. I'm going to notify the world. Not going to be a long show today, but we do have some stuff to cover. That's for darn sure. So we're going to do that. And thank you for joining me here on Small Ball. We are live. All right. And just notify the world. Like so. So welcome back. Now, I didn't really touch on too much of this last show. But as you can see, I'm in a different location. My voice might sound different because the audio is probably a little different. But I am in college, for those of you who don't know. Now, what does that mean for Small Ball? It means that at the very least, I'd like to revert back to a more structured and consistent schedule. What will that look like? I don't know yet, but I'm thinking my best guess would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and one of the 2 weekend days. Not sure which day that would be. Probably Sunday, but I don't know why I said that because I really have no idea. So probably Monday, Wednesday, Friday, one of the 2 weekend days. But obviously, as you know, if you watch Small Ball, we're not exactly the most logistically organized. So, more on that later. I'll fill you in. Well, let's talk baseball. Some news came in a couple days ago that kind of flew under the radar, and I want to start the show with this. So the Rays add Chris Archer. Re-add Chris Archer, obviously came up with the Rays. Was a member of the Pirates the last couple of years. Now he's coming back to the Rays. Also, Andrew Benintendi to the Royals. I love that for them, but I'm not going to talk too much about that today. Really, really good pickup for them, though. I think that he's going to have a really good year. But the Rays add back Chris Archer. So let's start with how I feel about that for the Rays. Excellent move. He is a perfect example of a pitcher with, still a lot left in the tank and really poised for a bounce back year, right? He's struggled since leaving the Rays. Now he comes back into what seems to be a comfortable environment for him, a lot of talent, and not too old yet. So I think he has some left in the tank for sure. So they add him for cheap, with a really good opportunity to kind of transform him back into what he once was. Now, for Chris Archer, it wasn't really working in Pittsburgh. They weren't winning games at all. He was struggling, and so I like the change of scenery back to, his old ways. But here's the thing about the Rays, and this is really the crux of this topic today. They're in bad shape, and that might sound strange coming off a pennant title. But think about this for a second, okay? The Rays, for starters, it's the hardest place to establish a winning culture of any franchise in Major League Baseball. There's little to no fan base, relatively new team, not a lot of success, largely because it's a new team, but in general, no history, to speak of really. And that area down there, in Tampa Bay, is not a baseball-rich, environment. So they have to work really, really hard to establish that culture. And what's interesting is that they have made incredible progress, despite, maybe 5 years ago. I mean, they've always kind of been competitive, but they've never had a strong, energetic culture until this year. Right? And that's really what put them over the top. They've had talent for years. And as you know, we talk about this all the time. A lot of teams have enough talent to succeed, whatever way that, however they want to define that. But without a strong winning culture, it doesn't really come to fruition. So the Rays have fought against those difficulties, but they are limited in large part by their coaching. I think Kevin Cash needs to go. It's over in Tampa. He cannot lead them to a title. He is the only thing stopping them from establishing that culture that can win a championship. Blake Snell is gone. They've moved on from him. They needed to. That's no shot at him, but it wasn't working. He did not want to be there. It wasn't a good situation. Talent-wise, he was producing for them, of course, but he didn't want to be there, and that's no fault of his. Kevin Cash and he did not get along. It's not it's not as if that Game 6 decision set him over the edge. It was brewing, and I guess in a way it did set him over the edge, but it's not like that was the only instance. There were other things. They just didn't really see eye to eye. And I think that about Kevin Cash, I don't think he's particularly in tune with the players, and I don't think he establishes any type of a positive culture. And obviously, as we see, his in-game decision-making is a bit lacking. So that's not really a good combination. Making poor decisions on the field, not getting along with players, and not establishing a culture. That's not really a recipe for a manager's success. So he has to go if the Rays want any chance of winning the title. Now they add Chris Archer, who, production-wise is average at this point in his career. But I do like it in terms of making strides, to replace Blake Snell, which he won't be able to do fully. I don't think he's quite the pitcher talent-wise as Blake Snell, but metaphorically speaking, symbolically, right, reverting back to the old ways when 2008, when they won the pennant, 9, 10, that culture was strong. The only difference is they had, I think, the best manager of this generation in Joe Maddon, and now they have one that I don't think is serving them well at all. So if I'm the Rays, I'm looking for a new manager, and that's not going to happen, and I understand that because they had a breakout year, they won the pennant, and that's just kind of how that sort of decision-making works nowadays, and not even just nowadays. I mean, if the team succeeds, a lot of that is put on the manager because people refuse to really dig deep and analyze that. But I don't. That's my job here on Small Ball. I dig deep and I try to determine what each manager, what each coach, what each player, what each whatever is doing to influence that organization. And I don't think Kevin Cash is having a positive influence right now on that organization. And I think they need to make a change. They will not. And for that reason, they're going to start to lose talent very quickly. Okay, players are going to realize that it's not working. They can't win this way. Kevin Cash is highly analytical, which a lot of players do agree with, but has no sense of the other side, right? Literally no sense. And you'll be hard-pressed to find, too many major league players that don't value some level of intangible abilities and culture and leadership and all that stuff. Maybe Trevor Bauer is probably the only exception there. But sooner or later, the players, the fan base, and the front office of Tampa Bay is going to realize that it's not working. So if they want to listen to me and make the switch now because they have the talent to be competitive, go, I'm all for it, right? But what I think is going to end up happening, which happens a lot in this game, is they just don't see it coming. They get too caught up in production, in past production, And I don't think Kevin Cash has a lot to do with the success that they've had and the team that they've been building. So my prediction is that it starts to fall apart very quickly. My hope for that organization, because I like that organization, and I think that it's unfortunate that they don't really have too much of a fan base. I mean, down there in Tampa Bay, it's really just not a baseball environment. But I like the organization. I like a lot of their players, and I hope that they can see that they need a different guy manning the ship. In a similar vein, I didn't talk about this last show, and I'm kind of surprised at myself that I didn't. But Nolan Arenado's on a different team. I mean, that's not something I probably should have left out of my discussion the other day. But alas, here we are. I mean, it's about time we talk about it. Nolan Arenado is now a St. Louis Cardinal. Okay, but I want to deal with the past a little bit right now in this situation, because one of the first small ball shows I ever did, I don't really remember how far into the show it was, but it wasn't long. It was one of my first shows. I talked at length about the direction of the Colorado Rockies. And I said they needed to tear it down, trade everyone, and completely shift the direction of the organization, including Bud Black. I always have trouble saying his name. Bud Black, the manager, was not working. Very similar situation to Tampa Bay, right? Not a baseball blue blood, city in Denver. Lot of talent, especially offensively, but unusual organization, right? Colorado is always unusual and unique just by nature of playing at such a high altitude. Tampa Bay is unusual and unique. They play in the domiest of domes in professional sports. And last year, around this time, I realized, despite having really high hopes for the Rockies, I quickly made the switch, and I realized, and I told myself and my viewers, the Rockies have no path to success here. It's not working. It's a collection of talent that does not it does not work in cohesion, and a lot of that has to do with the manager, right? Part of the manager's job, a big part, is taking individual pieces of talent and figuring out how they work together. Obviously, we can see that in basketball, football, hockey, soccer. I don't know too much about soccer, but I'm sure that the manager has, a lot to do with that. And in baseball, people kind of ignore that because it doesn't really seem to exist, right? The cohesion of different players. It seems like a more individualized sport, which it is. But Kevin Cash is a really good example of failing to create that cohesive aspect. And Bud Black is another great example. It wasn't working. I said last year that they needed to fire him and that they needed to tear it down because there was no path to success. It is a blueprint for the Rays, right? It is an example of where they're headed, and they should hope to and try to avoid that. I don't think they will, again, to reiterate that. But the Rockies right now, it started with Nolan Arenado. The players are quickly going to realize that they don't have the right manager, that they don't have they have too many holes. They don't have enough depth. They don't have enough balance. The pitching is always going to struggle in Colorado unless you're able to get really crafty, hopefully veteran pitchers, right? And they've done a better job of that in the last couple of years with Marquez and Gray and guys like that. But the bullpen is disastrous. The defense is absolutely horrendous, especially with Arenado now gone. And they have way too many holes to compete in a division with the Dodgers, the Padres, and I still think the Diamondbacks are an absolute playoff contender this year, despite a really down year last year. And the Giants proved me wrong last year and ended up being, I think, 2 games out of the playoffs. I thought they were going to be towards the bottom of the standings, if not the bottom. They proved me wrong. So the Rockies are clearly right now the worst team in that division, in my eyes. They needed to tear it down last year. Now they're sort of realizing that, and it starts with Arenado. And once Arenado goes, that's it. Because if you can't make the playoffs with Arenado, you're not making it without him. So now in the next couple of months, maybe years, if it takes that long, they're going to try to see what they can get for these players. And we just saw with Nolan Arenado, there's not that much they can do because other teams see what's going on. Other teams realize that it's not working, and they are desperate to see what they can get for these players because they're not a playoff contending team right now. Other teams understand that, and they got little to nothing for Nolan Arenado, who's a Hall of Famer in my eyes. So had this been last year and they had seen this coming, fired Bud Black, traded every single player that has any value, get as much young talent as they can get, load up the farm system, hire a new manager, maybe even a rookie manager, maybe even a highly inexperienced guy with a lot of talent to grow alongside a young team, completely retool and shift the path of the organization, right? But as of right now, there is no path for them to, I would argue, even make the playoffs in the next 3 to 5 years. No path. It starts with Bud Black. It continues with each of the players that they have who are aging, who aren't very good defensively, and have a lot of holes. The Rockies have shown signs of being very good because they have a lot of individual talent, but they have never put together a stretch of 10 games, 15 games, right, of consistent playoff level production as a team. I haven't seen that from them since, I would say, since the Ubaldo Jimenez days of like 2014. I mean, they have never been able to put together consistent, really top level play, despite having top level talent, especially in that division. I mean, there were over the last 10 years, I would say for the majority of that 10 years, they have had the most talent in the NL West. And I think have maybe 2 playoff appearances, both of which ended in the wild card game. So I don't know what took them so long to realize this. I can understand not wanting to part ways with such a good opportunity and such a good plethora of talent. But those are the decisions that you have to make, and those decisions are what shape a franchise. And good teams can see that coming early. That's why teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Giants, teams like that are never in a situation where they have to completely retool, rebuild, and tear it down and be non-competitive for any stretch of time, right? That's why those teams are always at least average, because they see this stuff coming and they handle it at the proper time. The Rockies did not do that. Now they're going to spiral out of control, and the Rays are right at that point where if they don't find a new guy, find a new manager, find a way to replace, Snell in the rotation, figure out which relievers they like, and get rid of the rest of them. They can't keep doing this, next man up reliever system with like 15 arms who all of which we don't even know if they can really pitch, right? All of them have talent. Figure out which ones you like, get rid of the rest, bring in better defense, bring in another pitcher, figure out who's going to be your 7, 8, 9 guy. This formula for the Rays is not working. And it sounds weird to say, I'm sure, to a lot of you people, because they won the pennant last year. But that's all in spite of all of this commotion. They had such good talent. I think the players did an incredible job of establishing a really, really strong winning culture. And Kevin Cash and the analytical department putting forward this, 3-man rotation situation, and the complete abomination of a defense, the worst defense in Major League Baseball, and struck out the most of any team in the league last year. So the players are fighting against all of that. And I think with the proper manager and better strategy, they're a legitimate contender. But at this point, I think it's going to go downhill from here. So that was kind of like in and out of the Rockies and Rays. I didn't really mean to go back to the Rays, but they're very related. I think two situations that are very, very similar. And now with Arenado gone, I don't see how you could even argue that they can try to contend this year. If their route is not now to trade everybody else, I really don't understand how they could think they would be doing the right thing. And I think all of you can see that as well. Now to Arenado on the Cardinals. I'm going to talk a little bit about this more later, but of course I want to give my thoughts, on the surface. The Cardinals are a very interesting team to me. Very difficult to kind of judge. Another one of those franchises, maybe the best example of this, that is just so well run that they can never be really bad in any facet, right? They're always going to be, competitive. 3 to 4 years ago, very competitive, but now they're aging a lot. Molina, certainly not a shell of his former self. Goldschmidt is not the player he once was. Adam Wainwright is back for like his 39th season or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, very, very stagnant, right? Kind of the same stuff we're seeing. And Mike Schultz, I think, is a good manager, but he doesn't really do anything to change that. It's pretty stagnant, and while other teams are getting better, they're not. They're kind of just aging and getting a little bit worse. So bringing in Arenado is going to be really interesting because it adds a lot of talent. It helps replenish some of the talent they've lost in the last couple of years, but I'm not sure if it quite changes the energy of the team, because Arenado, is a fiery personality, right? A very, not young anymore, but definitely younger than a lot of the guys that they have. And I think would gel more in an environment with younger players to be able to lead them, because I think he's very passionate, but certainly not, in a way that's harmful. I mean, he's very good at controlling that and kind of using that to his advantage. With a bunch of older guys on the team, I think that might get a little bit complicated. Now, I trust him to do a very good job, and I'm curious to see who becomes the leader of that team, right? Because certainly Yadier Molina, I think, holds that position, at this point in time. Does Nolan Arenado complicate that? Does he strengthen that? Does it sort of mess up that culture, or does it make it even better, throwing another really talented and really good leader into the mix? I'm really curious to see, and I have to do a little bit more thinking. I still haven't really sorted it all out, and I'll definitely continue to talk about the Cardinals because they're certainly going to be interesting. I kind of always at the beginning of each season pick a team that I think is going to be, just the most interesting, the team that I'm most excited to watch. Last year it was the Padres, and they did not disappoint. This year, I think it's going to be the Cardinals. I can definitely see myself watching a lot of Cardinals games. Last year, for the first month of the season, I watched just about every Padres game because there was just so much going on, and that's kind of what I see in St. Louis. But I do think that they need to continue to add. They could be very good. Let's not forget about Miles Mikolas coming back. Alex Reyes hopefully is healthy. right? On the pitching front, they're bringing a lot of guys back, and they have everything you'd really want in a team, right? They have complete veterans, total leaders, right? Wainwright on the pitching side, Molina and Goldschmidt, right, offensively. With some youth in like a Bader, right, and a Tommy Edman, Paul DeYoung, right? So a good balance of that. They're just a little bit stagnant. I mean, it's not really a great word to describe it, but the energy isn't quite there, right? Back in 2019, right, when they made the playoffs and got swept by the Braves, by the Nationals, they just didn't feel like they had the energy to compete with them. Not the physical energy, but you know what I'm talking about. Maybe the physical energy too. I don't know. They are kind of old, but they just don't feel like other teams, like the Nationals and the Dodgers and the Braves in the postseason. They just don't have that energy. So I'm really curious to see if Arenado can bring that, but I don't think he can do it single-handedly, especially with Mike Shildt at the helm, who I think is a good manager, but definitely doesn't help in the in that department of building a more dynamic culture and environment. But more on that later. Certainly going to talk some more Arenado. A lot of moves that I think that they can make, which maybe I'll kind of lay out for you as well. So I'm trying not to continue to talk about Trevor Bauer and the Dodgers. I mean, that's another team, of course, that is beyond interesting. But I don't think I need to tell you that. That's going to be a very interesting setup in LA. And the Padres, I don't quite know what to make of them as well. That's going to be a good division. But what I want to do is I want to wrap the show up with this. I kind of prefaced this last show, and a lot of people have been talking about this, and rightfully so. I want to put my opinion out there so that it's known. The NL East is clearly the strongest division in baseball. All 5 teams people think are playoff contenders, which does not happen very often. I want to rank them for you and voice my opinions on what I really think about the NL East, because that's going to be fascinating to watch. Now, to start off, let's not kid ourselves, please, okay? Can we please stop asking who's going to win the division? Because it's not a question. I mean, it's really not even going to be close. The Atlanta Braves will win the NL East. There is not a lot of doubt in my mind about that. Let's be very clear. Mets fans, Phillies fans, people that think the Marlins are going to contend for the division certainly had a exciting breakout year last year, but let's not kid ourselves, people. The Atlanta Braves are far and away the best team in the NL East. Now it gets interesting. And I think that there will be I don't know exactly how the playoffs are going to work yet. They haven't quite, figured that out. But assuming it's the traditional, traditional division winners and 2 wild card teams, that's going to be very, very interesting. With the Padres right in the NL West, with the Cardinals in the Central, and then the Reds, right? A lot of teams vying for those wild card spots, but the NL East could certainly have 2 of them. Very, very tough for me to decide who gets that second spot in the NL East, but I think I have to go with the Mets. I think I do. I think Lindor is going to change so much. Probably things that I can't even think of at this point. He's going to make every single player on that team better. I honestly think even the pitching staff, DeGrom is DeGrom, but some of their, kind of question mark pitchers over the last couple of years, I guess Steven Matz, type guy. I think he's going to help smooth that out for them. The bullpen as well has been very hit and miss over the last couple of years with Diaz, and I think you guys underestimate this. I mean, some of you, maybe some of you don't, but please believe me that adding Francisco Lindor is way beyond 300 batting average, 35 homers, 40 doubles, 40 stolen bases, and excellent defense. It's way, way beyond that. I mean, it just changes so much that isn't even describable. If you saw the Puerto Rico team in the World Baseball Classic back in 2017, led by Molina and Lindor and Baez, and Nelson Cruz, you can see the effect that Francisco Lindor just brings to the table and changes every single player on that roster. So I have to go with the Mets. I think DeGrom is going to be the best pitcher in baseball in 2021. And they are potentially adding a lot of pieces. I've heard Matt Chapman in the mix. Very happy they didn't add Bauer. If you saw the show Monday, I would be very, very relieved if I'm a Mets fan on that front. They gotta find a catcher because Wilson Ramos seems to be at the tail end of his career, and catcher, as you guys know, is certainly a position that you do not want to be lacking if you want to contend. So they gotta find a catcher. Hopefully a younger one. They don't need like a game managing catcher with all of the talented and very experienced pitchers that they have. I would go like James McCann, adding James McCann, right? For example, very, very good move for them. Is he going to be the right guy? We'll see. I think he will. But they have to iron that out. I would get another catcher, and just in case, right? Because he is a question mark, but I really love that pickup. A lot of things to be excited about from Mets fans this year. I didn't really explain that well, the whole catcher thing. My bad on that, but I think you kind of get what I'm saying. And then the Phillies. It's got to be the Phillies, right? Ton of talent. Bringing back Real Muto. Now that there's not really that hanging over their heads anymore, now that they don't have to wonder, is he staying long-term? Should we trade him? That's going to mean a lot. That's going to change a lot, and he's the best catcher in baseball, and it's not close. I worry about the pitching. I do. I don't trust Nola over the span of a full season to stay consistent. I don't trust Zach Wheeler to stay healthy. And they're really young. The Phillies are really young with a lot of pieces that I like, between Hazley, guys like that, right? Even like Roman Quinn. But are all of them going to work out? Probably not. If some of them do, I think they're third in the division. Does that earn them a playoff spot? Very tough to say. I think it might, though. I really do. It's a tough call. I have to see how the playoff structure is going to look, but more on that later. Then the Marlins. Yes, then the Marlins. The Marlins have Don Mattingly at the helm, who I did not love as a manager last couple of years, but last year won and deserved manager of the year, I think, between him and Jace Tingler. Very, very close, but two excellent seasons as far as managing goes. Incredible young talent, and they're only going to get better with Jazz Chisholm, Brian Anderson, Lewis Brinson. I mean, all over the place. Alfaro, if he can, kind of figure it out offensively. Excuse me. Yeah, I love the direction of the Marlins. They honestly, next 5 years, could develop, a big three in the pitching staff, between Urania, Sanchez, and Caleb Smith, that I think could be exceptionally dangerous. Plus a lot of really, really good prospects coming up. Sandy Alcantara showed really, really good promise last year. So maybe even, a full staff of frontline starters. And I really do like Caleb Smith. Not quite as dynamic as the others, but certainly a lot to look forward to if you are a Marlins fan. I don't think the Nationals are going to have a good year. I think their time is up. Yes, Juan Soto is a generational player, future Hall of Famer. But I would not be surprised if his first contract post arbitration is not with the Nationals, which is really unfortunate for Nationals fans and for him. I think it's a great spot for him. But I think over these next couple of years, with all these other NL East teams getting so much better and them just kind of not, right, and just aging, not really replenishing what they lost, I think they're going to lose Patrick Corbin after this year. Does Steven Strasburg stay healthy? I don't know. Soto is really going to be the one thing that can kind of hold it together. And I think if he's banged up at any point, if he, struggles at any point, which I don't expect that he will, I don't think they have enough to kind of back him up, especially because he's not an outstanding defensive player by any means. So I just don't. I think they're going to kind of start to spiral out of control a little bit. I mean, that's kind of an oxymoron, but definitely going to take a hit in the win department with all these other teams getting really good, and they're kind of they're not. So yeah, I don't think they're going to have a good year at all. I think they're going to get kind of humbled this year and then have to make some serious decisions. I would not be surprised if Soto gets traded. Not this year for sure. He's gonna be there all of this year, but next couple of years, I would not be surprised to see them move off of him, which again is really unfortunate. He's one of the only players that I think you can keep if you're not a contending team because he's so valuable and still has a lot of room to grow. But I would not really have a problem with them trying to see what they can get either if they decide that they have to rebuild, which I think next 2-3 years with Strasburg aging, with a lot of their guys aging, Kendrick's retired. I mean, I think he's like kind of the first one to fall, right? And not really a lot of young, prospects coming up. They have a couple, but I don't love a lot of them. So I think next couple of years, they really start to fall off, and they're going to have to make some decisions. So that's my order. Braves number 1. Mets and Phillies, it's like that to me. It's really close. On one side, it's really difficult to bet against Real Muto, but it's also really difficult to bet against Lindor. I think Harper has, and we'll definitely talk about this more, and I've talked about this before, but I think Harper has matured so much since coming to Philadelphia that he really proved me wrong and has become on the field and off the field, the franchise player that, certainly when he came up, we thought he could be. His production hasn't quite been there, but he has really figured himself out, intangibly and just done an excellent job with that franchise. However, I think Lindor is going to change a lot, and I think that we're going to see a Mets team that we haven't seen since '86. I think '86, right? Won the pennant did not win the pennant in '07. Almost won the pennant in '07. Won the pennant in 2000. Won the World Series in '86. I don't know a lot about that '86 team. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch 2000 either. I was about 3 days old, I think, when they won the pennant. So, I can't really speak too much to the culture of those teams. But I do think that certainly the '86 team was strong. But this team will rival it in terms of talent, in terms of culture, and in terms of production. And then the Marlins, and then the Nationals, right? So that's my order. And that's going to wrap up today's show. So, again, big stretch from me right there. Again, probably going to try to get, more concrete with the schedule, right? As my schedule becomes more clear, the schedule for small ball will become more clear. My best guess is like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then probably one of the 2 weekend days. Maybe none of the weekend days if we only do 3 shows that week, or maybe we'll substitute a weekend day for one of the weekly, ones during the week. I don't know yet. We'll see. But yeah. So more on that later. Thanks so much for watching today. Hope you enjoyed. I am gonna start to try. I figured out a way to take bits and pieces, because if I record these shows and just post them, just upload them, it's easy for me to take bits and pieces, edit it, and then throw it out there for like shorter clips, which a lot of you have been asking for. I don't really want to do that though, because I really like the live format. So I figured out a way to actually grab some clips from the live streams. So now that I figured that out, a lot of you have been asking for it. The couple times that I've been able to do it, it has, I've gotten a lot of really good positive feedback for it. So look forward to that. I'm excited about that. That should be cool, right? If you only have 10 minutes to listen, while you're eating lunch or whatever, you can just go over to the channel and just kind of click on some of the major talking points, things that you might be interested in from the show from the day before or something like that. So you'll see what I mean as I start to put those up. But I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much for watching today. Have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your weekend. Because I doubt that we could do a show Sunday. I don't know yet. We'll see. But definitely have a healthy, happy, and safe rest of your weekend, regardless of whether we have a show or not. And thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, comment, recommend, all that good stuff if you feel inclined to do so. Thanks for being with us here on a Friday. Really good show today. I enjoyed it thoroughly, and hopefully we will be back on Sunday, maybe Monday. Don't know. But either way, a lot more to talk about as the season approaches. Spring training is only in about 2 weeks. So a lot of stuff to be excited about, and we got it covered here on Small Ball. So thank you for watching. Take care. Have a good weekend. Peace.